So, good day. We're learning Kuntres Hechaltzu from the Rashab. I think we're on page 117 or 118 or so in the lessons in Hechaltzu, which is the middle of chapter 14. 117. Thank you. So until now, the author, Rebbe Rashab, is called Rashab. It's an acronym for Reb Sholem Ber, the fifth Chabad Rebbe, 5. So he authored this in the year 1898, I believe. And he points to the fact that for one to get rid of their ego, it's a very tough job. And even if outwardly it seems like you're egoless, nevertheless, there could be something called an ego within the recesses of the heart. In Hebrew, it's called Helem HaNefesh. Yesterday, Moshe, we discussed, Hillel, myself, during the shir, whether it's the subconscious, the superconscious, or another form of consciousness that Hillel brought to the table. So, regardless, the point being that it's very deep and concealed. So normally, you don't experience it. But there are flashbacks. There are moments in life where something triggers that. And the Rashab says that if you don't get rid of it, it can and will come back to haunt you. More or less. So therefore, don't consider your service of humility towards God as complete. And a Jew, he suggests, should always be cognizant of this and not fearful and not guilt, but just be alert. To be alert when that little ego sticks its ugly nose in and causes you to act the way you act. And you ask yourself, hey, I'm generally not an ego guy. I'm a regular, how is it that the answer is because deep down there was something there, ego-oriented, that wasn't corrected, or maybe you were born with, and you didn't work it out, and you didn't fix it, and that comes to haunt you. So now the Rashab turns back to how this impacts not you, but the community. Because remember, this mimer is about Moshe, someone getting up in your shul and causing a ruckus and making a big deal and showing off, and I'm everything, and you're nothing, and you don't know how to daven, and you don't know how to do this, and I know, and all that. This is what happened then in 1898 in Russia, Ukraine, wherever they were. So the Rashab, that's really what made him say and write this discourse. It was discord in a shul, in a Chabad shul. 1898. Now it's 2025. We have discord too in shuls, plenty of them. So learning this mimer is very important for us, especially those that are Chabadniks, to follow. So let's see what he says now. So now he's going to show us how ego is detrimental to community life. Okay? That is the point we're at now. Ulazois. 117. Ulazois and because he still has a remnant of ego within him, he can't tolerate his friend who also has some virtue and some good quality in his service of God. And this fellow can't tolerate that. V'im kain, haru idoi me'elov, And therefore, he establishes a parity to him that impinges on his yeshus. Umemayet ha-yeshus shaloi. And what does this do? And this impinges on his yeshus. In other words, let me say it in simple English. When you recognize that someone else has a virtue, this malady that we're discussing here in the Maimer, this subtle ego within Helam HaNefesh feels threatened. Simple English. So therefore, you poo-poo the other one's davening. Has it happened to you? It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you too. You're in your corner davening. You're learning. We're on chapter 14, Baruch, towards the last part of the chapter. So, why? Why is it that sometimes you're in your own corner? You're learning, you're davening, you're minding your own business, and someone comes over and says something nasty to you. Why? Says the Rashab here. You know why? Because this fellow's ego is still there. And when he sees you're davening beautifully and you're learning beautifully and you're doing the right thing, he can't take it, he can't tolerate it. So he opens his mouth to you. That's what we just learned. And this person who has this attitude cannot attach himself to you. Heavy words, and he hates you. And what does he do? He goes about to show everyone and to heighten your weakness. Sounds familiar? He finds an area where you're not perfect. My mother, blessed memory, used to say, Mr. Perfect. There are people who are Mr. Perfect, or they think they're Mr. Perfect. But who's perfect? So he latches on to that imperfection, and he blows it out of proportion. And he goes around telling everyone, you think that this fellow in shul, he's something special? He davens with kavanah and he means it and all that. Look at in this area in his life, and you'll see how he's not perfect. And more so, and he gossips and he rats on you and he makes a big deal about something that's insignificant. Insignificant in a sense as far as the other person is concerned. As far as you're concerned, it's significant. Every imperfection should cause us to be more concerned and work harder. But for the other fellow, come on, that's all you have to grab onto? You gotta be kidding. That's what he does. And this kind of, I'm going to use the word, this vicious fellow says, look how no good this behavior of this individual is. And therefore he disgraces his friends, the other person's service. He poo-poos it. He says he's a charlatan, he's a faker, he's a nothing. That's what he does. Why does he do all this? This is real psychology, Hillel. The Rashab is going into the person's brain. So that there should be no comparison between him and I. You guys think he's special. In other words, it's reverse psychology, if I'm using the right term. In other words, he's putting the other guy down to make himself more significant. And therefore, how can you compare me to him? That's really what he's saying. I'm great and he's nothing. And saying and speaking positively about him would diminish me. And hey, it's all about me. That's what's happening here. Moshe Drucker, how does that sound? Huh? Or at least he doesn't want the other fellow, Baruch, to be greater than him. So how do you make sure how do you make sure the other fellow is not greater than him? By putting him down. putting down the other person means he's not as great as I. Or even when it does not affect him, others will not compare his colleague to him, or his gadol olav, or they consider the person greater than him, he will still denigrate that person. Even if they won't, he still will denigrate him. It all comes from one thing that we mentioned earlier, from his ego that's within him, deep down in the recesses of his heart. It's still there, and it causes him to have these feelings towards the other person. Therefore he hates him and he embarrasses him, and he cannot speak positively, peacefully about him, to connect himself to the person. Now he goes further, particularly when he sees in his colleague a superior quality. Until now we were talking about, he just sees regular things, ordinary stuff about his colleague. But now he sees something, hey, this fellow is really blessed in this area and that area, whether the advantage, the superior quality is in intellect, or some extra measure of vigilance and piety and purity, these are harsh words. He will get angered, enraged, and infuriated. Wow. Very much so, he can't bear it. In other words, now the Rebbe in the first chapter in Tanya talks about two midos that are no good. One's called hoilelus, frivolity. No, one's called hispidus, which means really boasting. The other one is gaiva, boasting. What's the difference? The difference is, one is that you really have a greatness. You have some special quality, but you boast about it. Chaim Zev. The other one is, it's like a balloon. There's nothing there. It's a bunch of air, but meanwhile it looks like a big, nice balloon. Right? The Rebbe Rashab says here that when this person realizes that fellow that he doesn't like has really won over him, and not only over him, but over everyone else, he's really a quality person, whether it be in intellect, whether it be in behavior, in righteousness, and piety, and purity, it burns him up. It eats him up. He said he can't tolerate, can't take it anymore. That's what he says. Now the Rebbe says, within this bad attribute that we're discussing, that this person has, there's also a mixture of what's called jealousy, kinna. Asher kosha kisheoil kinna. Envy is as cruel as the grave. A quote from Song of Songs, from King Solomon, the wise one. Envy is as cruel as the grave, my friends. And therefore it's included and incorporated in what we call baseless hatred. The other person did anything to him. He hasn't taken anything from him. Whatever he achieved, he accomplished on his own and for himself. And the envious person has the potential to do the same. The colleague is not preventing him from emulating those achievements. I'll read just a note here. The above refers to envy and jealousy regarding spiritual achievements. There is no basis for negative feelings to be aroused from another person's success in attaining spiritual prowess, because it does not detract at all from one's own potential. Baruch, so understand, we're talking here about ruchnisdike achievements. So, Baruch, you look around, you've been around, and you see Hasidim and people, Mashpiyim, and what, there's nothing. You envying them in a positive way, meaning I wish I could be that way, that's fine. That's good. But the envy that comes and leads to, therefore I will put him down because no one's greater than me. And therefore, if he is really greater than me, I have to go around poo-pooing him and putting him down so that I stay on top. That's what we're talking about here. Now that Rashab switches Hillel to material jealousy, not spiritual. He envies another success and wealth. People who have succeeded and are well off, and there are people that can't stand that. They're jealous. Why did the wealthy person take your money? He didn't take your money. He made his own money. Remember, it's the blessing of God that makes you wealthy. It ain't the stock market, the real estate market, and the futures, and the bonds. It's Bichas Hashem. If Hashem wants you to be blessed, yes, you make a vessel, you make an investment, you use your head, not your emotions, to make the investment. I say that because the Rebbe once told me I shouldn't put all my eggs in one basket. The Lubavitcher Rebbe answered me regarding investments many years ago when I was in Marin County, I believe. He says he blessed my endeavors, but he said I advise you not to put all your eggs in one basket, which is common sense. But just hang it about. The Rebbe said that, wrote to me on my note. My point being is Birchas Hashem Itashir. So on one hand, Chaim Zev, you have to follow the dictates of investing, But at the end of the day, follow Shmalo Halo. If Hashem wants you to make it and make it big, the bracha is coming. And if He doesn't for some reason, it's not going to happen either. So you have to always remember that. So what the Rashab is saying here, you're jealous of the other person's money, you fool. It's Birchas Hashem Itashir. He didn't make himself wealthy. It's God that made him wealthy. So instead of, you don't want to use the wrong language, instead of complaining about the other person and being jealous and all that, make a vessel, connect to God, and ask Hashem to bless your endeavors. Hate born of envy, you hear that? Hate born of envy defies correction. Thus, envy compounds the friction his yeshus causes, making the situation virtually irredeemable. Virtually irredeemable. Just to explain this last point, the last point being, there is a hate, a sinner, you have towards someone that comes for other reasons, as we mentioned in this chapter. But then there's a hate that comes because of jealousy. Here, the Rebbe is saying, the Rashab is saying, this is a very difficult one to repair. In other words, hate due to other reasons are easier, comparatively speaking, to repair, to get rid of. But if the hate's coming out of jealousy, almost impossible. Now we understand, as I'm saying this to you, teaching this, I understand better what it says in Pirkei Avos and Ethics of the Fathers about kina. Hakina v'ataiva, right? Jealousy and lust. Meitzinas Odom and Olam makes you leave the world. Basically, you die. If you have to get your lusts and you're an animal, you're going to die from sickness. You're going to die from whatever. It says it also about jealousy. Jealousy drives a person to the grave. That's very, very. We don't. We don't talk much about it. At least I haven't found lots of. But and the truth be said, Baruch Hashem, I don't know. I don't find lots of people who are jealous. This jealousy that he's describing here is really bad. And Baruch Hashem, I don't know. I don't find many people that have such a bad midah, have such a bad attribute. You want to say something, Hillel? Go ahead.
Yeah, there are two Torahs that come to mind when you're saying this, and one I wanted to share.
Please.
There's a beautiful Torah in the Sefer Nesiv Mitzvosecha from the Kumarna, where he describes like the bad feelings that people have when towards tzaddikim, people who are more righteous than them, and so he explains it as follows. He says,
yeah,
that in every person there's a mixture of good and evil.
Yeah.
And he says when a person sees somebody else and has irrational hatred for them or kina for them, he says what's happening to them spiritually is the good force, the good within them, realizes that this person's going down a dark path. They've already given rise to the emotions that will take them down a dark path, and the good within them wants to get out of there. So it attaches itself to the tzaddik. It attaches itself to the other person, and the hater is left, with more and more of their negativity. And I suppose you could say the same thing is true, like at the level of kina. If somebody else, if I'm jealous of somebody else, l'chora, I'm making them richer with my kina, because my emotions that are preventing me now from having a conduit, a channel for blessing for Hashem, and l'chora, their channels are already open. So Hashem can bless them more. So,
right.
It seems like a parallel kind of teaching to this.
Right. Thank you. I understand. This idea of jealousy it's important to think about from time to time. When you meet people have lots, and then maybe you don't have lots, and things like that. That's why the teaching of Pirkei Avos, Ezel Osher, who's wealthy, Hasomeach and Chelko, is someone who's happy with what his lot. I'll tell you, It reminds me, my mother of blessed memory was a Holocaust survivor. And she would tell us when we were young children how they lived in Poland, in their city where they were. I think it was called Makov, outside of Warsaw. And she said, we lived together, parents, grandparents, children, in one room. I mean, she described it very vividly. It was her childhood memories. And she said it was so loving. It was so together in one room. Then, after she and her mother and aunt survived, and grandmother survived, and they came, her aunt and grandmother went to Eretz Yisrael, but her mother remarried, and they moved to Costa Rica. There was a community of Polish Jews, many of which came before the war. And because my step-grandfather had a brother there, he sent a visa, and that's how they got to Costa Rica. And there too, my mother would tell me, growing up, the poverty was rampant. She told me, it was people, they had, like you have today, even in Jamaica and Haiti, and from what I see online, the aluminum roofs, you could see they're living in real poverty, and when
that's common.
What?
That's common. That's Central America, Caribbean. That's just, I worked there for 20 years. That's just common.
Okay. Well,
that's common.
Okay, but San Jose today, there's many places that have built up and they have modern. My uncle lives there and he has a beautiful, large, custom-made house. So many have done well. But so she told me how growing up with this, and what I look back now 40, 50, 60 years, you see that when children are raised with humility, and I'm going to even say sometimes poverty, but I don't mean poverty, I mean simplicity. You know what I'm saying? You don't go out to eat. You know what I'm saying? There's something that's left over in that child later in life that many times is very healthy. And when you spoil and you give everything and you have everything, there's some issues. You feel entitled to everything. Yes, Hillel. I mean, you're the social worker, so you see this more than I.
Yeah, I wanted to say in this regard that one of the spiritual benefits that I consider that I've gained from having a life as a therapist is in this regards to Kina, because when people I've had in my practice, Baruch Hashem, people from all walks of life, including people of extraordinary wealth and prestige and status and power, and when they open up their hearts and reveal what their real struggles are, you wouldn't want to trade for them for anything.
Right.
You back to Ezu Ashir Asamech B'Chelko.
It reminds me years ago, someone who was a little older than me in yeshiva, and he came from real Chabad stock, and he became a little modern, and he married a woman who wasn't at all Chabad. I'm not sure, I know, if she was about teshuva or not, but, much more modern. And I saw how he had some children, and the children were dressed not in the Chabad way, And I said to myself, I don't like, this is not good. This is not good. And ultimately, he divorced and, he died young. I'm just saying, I got this feeling like what are you trying to do? You don't come from there. Like, why? Now could be, it's his wife who, but that itself was a question. So who asked you to marry such a woman? You decided to marry her. I don't, you let modernity, I'm saying what appears, so if I'm wrong, I wish I'm wrong. But what appears is that when you let modernity creep in the youth, it causes issues. Now, I'm not speaking about being a fanatic, and I'm not speaking about, being overboard and overzealous and critical, because we discussed how that doesn't work today for sure. It's never worked, but once upon a time you can get away with it. Today you can't get away with, right? But there's something about simplicity. There's something about simplicity. And when children are educated that way and raised in such a home, there's better results. I see here, my house, a pretty simple house, I don't have fancy furniture thing. I raised, thank God, seven children here, and each one of them is a jewel. I'm saying in their life. They're married, they have children, and they're doing good things, and I see others, friends and others, where there was more affluence and more, things, and there's issues. And again, this is a generality. So I think what that Rashab is speaking about here, this idea of kina, how we have to be very, very distant from kina. This is the message over here. Okay. Kitzer, just to conclude, the Rebbe says in the synopsis, Yeshus ba'avoda b'simcha v'etzel hazeh. He explained in this chapter the idea of ego within service of God, the form b'simcha. Sometimes it expresses itself also in a happy way, which we learned yesterday, Baruch. If you're interested, you can listen to that. It was a very important shir about, the Rebbe uses the word here, Zufriedenkeit, which is not just happiness, but it's happiness coming from ego. And he says, we gave advice suggestions and solutions how to get rid of this. Yesh is b'avoda b'shiflus, and there can also be ego in the avoda known as humility. And the Rebbe explained to us what's the cause of that, which he's referring to the helem hanefesh, the concealed part of the soul. Yeshus goremes sina v'kina, and Yeshus has ego of any sort, has the dangerous element of causing hatred and jealousy. We'll continue tomorrow, Chevra. Everyone have a good day. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye bye.